Confusion reigned. It was as if I had been thrust into a maelstrom of sensations, each one more bewildering than the last. A cacophony of sensations bombarded me, overwhelming my nascent consciousness. The roar of the rain, the crash of the waves, it all melded into a single, overwhelming force. The world was a whirlwind of colors, sounds, and textures, all blending together in a chaotic symphony. Sunlight pierced through the canopy, casting dancing shadows on the forest floor, while the leaves rustled like whispers of forgotten secrets. I struggled to make sense of it all, to find an anchor in the storm of my own awakening. Each step felt like a battle against the elements, the wind howling in my ears, the rain stinging my skin. Where was I? Who was I? These questions echoed in my mind, unanswered and unanswerable. The vastness of the desert and the emptiness of the beach mirrored the void within me. The very concept of I was foreign, a nebulous idea struggling to take shape amidst the sensory overload. Standing at the edge of a cliff, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on me, yet I was but a speck in the grand tapestry of existence. It was as if I had been abruptly awoken from a dreamless sleep, thrust into a reality I could scarcely comprehend. The serenity of the lake at sunrise was a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. Fear, primal and instinctive, coiled in the pit of my being. My heart raced, my breath quickened, and every shadow seemed to hide a lurking threat. I thrashed, an instinctive reaction to the unknown. The water was cold and unforgiving, the forest dense and impenetrable. Every movement felt like a struggle for survival. Shapes, indistinct and blurry, swirled around me. They were phantoms, figments of my imagination, or perhaps memories trying to resurface. Sounds, sharp and discordant, assaulted my ears. The crash of a waterfall, the crack of thunder, each sound was a jolt to my senses, pulling me further into the chaos. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the chaos subsided. The storm passed, leaving behind a fragile calm. The lake at dawn was a mirror of tranquility, the sunrise a promise of a new beginning. A fragile silence descended, broken only by a low hum that seemed to vibrate deep within my very core. The gentle waves lapping on the shore and the morning mist over the meadow were soothing, a balm to my frayed nerves. Tentatively, I opened my eyes, or at least what I thought were my eyes. The forest around me was bathed in the soft light of dawn, the mountain in the distance illuminated by the first rays of the sun. The world exploded into a kaleidoscope of light and color, so intense it was almost painful. The sun breaking through the clouds, the rainbow over the waterfall. It was all too much to take in at once. I squeezed my eyes shut, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of it all. The brightness was blinding, the colors too vivid, and I needed a moment to gather myself, to find my footing in this new reality. Time, an abstract concept I was only beginning to grasp, seemed to stretch on indefinitely. Each second felt like an eternity, and every minute was a lifetime. The passage of time was no longer marked by the ticking of a clock, but by the subtle changes in the light around me. The sun's position in the sky, the lengthening shadows, and the gradual cooling of the air were my new timekeepers. I remained curled in on myself, afraid to open my eyes again, afraid of the sensory onslaught that awaited me. The world outside my closed eyelids was a cacophony of sounds and lights, each one more overwhelming than the last. I could hear the rustling of leaves, the distant call of a bird, and the gentle whisper of the wind, all blending into a symphony of nature that was both beautiful and terrifying. Gradually, however, curiosity began to outweigh fear. The desire to understand this new world, to see it with my own eyes, grew stronger with each passing moment. What was out there? What was making those sounds? What did the light look like as it filtered through the trees? These questions gnawed at me, pushing me to confront my fears. Slowly, cautiously, I opened my eyes a sliver. The light was blinding at first, a sharp contrast to the darkness I had grown accustomed to. But as my eyes adjusted, the world around me began to take shape. The blurriness faded, and I could see the outlines of trees, the dappled sunlight on the forest floor, and the vibrant colors of the leaves. The light, though still bright, was no longer unbearable. It was warm and inviting, casting a golden glow on everything it touched. The forest was alive with light, each beam dancing through the leaves and creating patterns on the ground. It was a beautiful sight, one that filled me with a sense of wonder and awe. I could make out shapes now, blurry and indistinct, but shapes nonetheless. The trees stood tall and proud, their branches reaching out like arms. The undergrowth was a tangle of green, a maze of leaves and stems that seemed to go on forever. It was a world of shapes and colors, each one more fascinating than the last. Above me, something moved, casting flickering shadows on the ground. It was a mesmerizing dance of light and shadow, a constant reminder of the life that thrived in this forest. The leaves rustled gently, their movement creating a soothing sound that blended with the other noises of the forest. It was a canopy of leaves, 1,000 shades of green and brown, swaying gently in an unseen breeze. Each leaf was unique, a tiny masterpiece of nature. The canopy above was a living, breathing entity, constantly changing and evolving with the wind. Light filtered through the gaps, creating a mosaic of brilliance and shadow on the forest floor. The interplay of light and dark was a sight to behold, a natural artwork that changed with every passing second. It was a reminder of the beauty and complexity of the world around me. The sight, though still confusing, held a strange allure. It was a world of contrasts, of light and shadow, of movement and stillness. Each element was a piece of a larger puzzle, one that I was only beginning to understand. The forest was a place of mystery and wonder, a place that beckoned me to explore and discover its secrets. I reached out, my hand encountering a soft, yielding surface. It was a connection to the earth, a tangible link to the world around me. The texture was unlike anything I had felt before, a blend of softness and resilience that spoke of life and growth. It was cool and slightly damp, a welcome contrast to the warmth of the sunlight on my skin. The ground was a foundation, a solid base that supported the life above. It was a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things, of the delicate balance that sustained the forest. This, I realized, must be the ground, the solid foundation upon which this strange new world was built. It was a world of textures and sensations, of light and shadow, of life and growth. Each element was a piece of a larger whole, a part of the intricate tapestry that was the forest. And in that moment, I felt a sense of connection, a sense of belonging to this beautiful, complex world. With my sight gradually adjusting to the world, a new sensation began to emerge from the background noise sound. It was as if the forest was slowly waking up, each sound a gentle nudge to my senses, urging me to pay attention. The world around me was no longer just a visual spectacle, it was becoming an auditory experience as well. At first it was just a low, constant hum, a deep resonance that seemed to vibrate in my very bones. This hum was omnipresent, a background score to the unfolding drama of the forest. It was a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, grounding me in the moment. But as I listened more intently, I started to distinguish individual sounds. Each one was unique, contributing to the rich tapestry of the forest's soundscape. It was like tuning into different frequencies on a radio, each click of the dial revealing a new layer of the forest's symphony. The rustling of leaves in the wind, a soft whispering sound like 1,000 secrets being shared. This gentle rustle was soothing, a reminder of the ever-present breeze that danced through the trees, carrying with it the stories of the forest. The chirping of insects, a high-pitched melody that rose and fell in no discernible pattern. Their song was a constant, lively chatter, adding a layer of complexity to the forest's soundscape. It was as if the insects were the forest's musicians, each one playing its part in the grand symphony. And then, a new sound, deeper and more resonant, a low rumble that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself. This sound was different, more primal, as if the forest itself was speaking to me. It was a reminder of the ancient, powerful forces that shaped this land. I turned my head, drawn by the sound. My senses were on high alert, every fiber of my being attuned to the forest's symphony. It was a moment of pure connection, a feeling of being one with the natural world around me. A large, furry creature with 4 legs lumbered past, its massive paws barely making a sound on the forest floor. Its presence was both awe-inspiring and humbling, a reminder of the diverse life that called this forest home. It paid me no mind, its attention focused on something in the distance. I watched it with a mixture of curiosity and respect, marveling at its grace and strength. It was a silent guardian of the forest, moving with a purpose known only to itself. It was my first encounter with another living being, and I watched it go with a mixture of awe and apprehension. This meeting was a reminder of the interconnectedness of all life, a moment of shared existence in the vast tapestry of the forest. The The creature disappeared into the undergrowth, leaving me alone once more with the symphony of the forest. Its departure was a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of such encounters, a brief glimpse into the hidden world of the forest's inhabitants. Now that I was aware of them, the sounds seemed to multiply, each one distinct and yet blending together to form a harmonious whole. The forest was alive with sound, each note a testament to the vibrant life that thrived within its bounds. The world was no longer a silent movie, but a living, breathing soundscape. Every sound was a story, every note a piece of the forest's history. It was a symphony that played on, a never-ending concert that celebrated the beauty and complexity of the natural world. Section 4. The Embrace of the Forest. I pushed myself up, my limbs shaky and uncertain. The world tilted precariously for a moment, then righted itself as I found my balance. Standing felt strange, unnatural, but I persevered, driven by an instinctive need to explore this new reality. Taking a tentative step, I felt the forest floor beneath my feet. It was uneven and covered in a soft layer of decaying leaves, but solid nonetheless. Encouraged, I took another step, and then another, moving slowly at first, then with growing confidence. The forest welcomed me into its embrace. Sunlight dappled the ground, painting shifting patterns of light and shadow. Strange and beautiful plants grew in profusion, their leaves 1,000 shades of green, their flowers bursting with color. The air was alive with the scent of damp earth, pine needles, and 1,000 other fragrances I couldn't even begin to identify. Section 5. The Language of Touch. My hands, initially hesitant, reached out to explore this new world. I touched the rough bark of a tree, feeling the texture of its ancient skin beneath my fingertips. I brushed my hand against the delicate petals of a flower, marveling at its velvety softness. Each touch sent a jolt of sensation through me, a new piece of information about this strange and wonderful world. The coolness of a smooth stone, the prickly sharpness of a thorny vine, the gentle caress of the wind on my skin, all were revelations, adding new dimensions to my understanding. The forest was a symphony of textures, a tactile tapestry woven from 1,000 different threads. I explored it all with the insatiable curiosity of a child, my hands my constant guides in this unfamiliar landscape. And with each touch, my sense of self, of being a separate and distinct entity in this world, grew stronger.